Hello and welcome back to the Kitchen Table Modelers Workshop. My name's Ian and this is my kitchen table where I do all my modelling. So what have we got for you today? Well, as you can look over my shoulder here, I've got an inbox review, a sprue tour, whatever you want to call it, of Tamiya's fantastic US 40-ton tank transporter, the Dragon Wagin. Yes, this is a kit I've probably been excited to have for quite a while. Picked it up a wee while ago, very cheap off of eBay, I have to say. And my main interest in the kit was sparked after I managed to pick up the Tamiya Famo tank transporter trailer. And I just thought it would be a really good companion to have with the two builds side by side. It's probably one of Tamiya's most prestigious 1/35 kits. It's probably one of the biggest ones along with the Famo. And it certainly has huge potential for dioramas, massive vignettes, anything you want to do with it. So yeah, I kind of feel lucky that I managed to get it and excited to do it. It's not going to be done for quite a while because I'm working away with some quite full-on builds at the moment, and I really need to clear my feet with a lot of these builds and just have one of the builds on the go, so either the Famo or the Dragon Wagin. Just sort of focus solely on that because of the size of the kit. But anyway, that's a lot further down the future. This video here is to actually have a look through the box and see what we get in the box and what we think of the stuff that's in the box. Well, certainly what I think of it anyway. So I think I'm kind of waffling now. So let's quit the waffling, let's get the kit on the table, let's open the lid and see what we get. So here we are, and box art on Tamiya's 40-ton tank transporter Dragon Wagin. Again, classic Tamiya box art. What can we say? Gotta love these kits, gotta love the effort that's gone into producing the artwork on the box. It really does just inspire you to get in and build this kit and really get you excited, which is what box art should do. So let's have a look over it. So anyway, 1/35 miniatures series, kit number 230, and obviously you get the tractor unit and then you get the trailer unit and then you get the line drawing of what sort of load this could be carrying. So you've got a Sherman on this, for example. If we look at the sides, we get a plan view of the unit, and it's massive. Obviously I'm having to move it past the lens to get it all in. We look at the end, that's the same box art as the top. Obviously the CE mark for a European kit, and then obviously item number 35230. And then we go look on the reverse side and we get a different view of the tank transporter carrying a Panther tank, which is based on a very famous photograph that was taken in the war of the actual vehicle carrying a recovered Panther tank. And it also tells us here that we get etching parts and metal items. So there's photo etch parts there, and these are likely to be metal axles, and much like the Famo, these two long pieces here will be strengthening plates for the trailer, so it can take whatever weight you want to put on it. And then back on the other end you've got the same as the top. So let's lift the lid off. As I said, this kit was bought second-hand on eBay, but everything's in there, it's never been touched. So there we go. First off, we've got the instruction book, so we'll have a look through that first, and then we'll dive through the plastic parts. So it tells you, let's get that in the frame. So movable front wheels, one-piece cabin, pneumatic rubber tyres, highly detailed suspension, tandem winch, 4 figures with realistic expression. Well, excellent. Tamiya figures are okay. You can get a decent bit of detailing on them and they come all right. I'm no huge figure painter, but anyone who's got decent painting skills should be able to get them finished to add more interest to the vehicle. You've got the usual Tamiya information about the vehicle here, and a couple of well, there we go, there's the photograph there of the tank transporter recovering this Panther tank, and then you've got a Probably an Invasion Sherman. If you look on the back of it, you've got the raised air intakes that we used for waterborne landings out of a landing craft. So that could be circa 1944, early spring into summer, for getting ready for D-Day. Or even just after D-Day, who knows. And then we move through to the next page where you get your usual Tamiya information, what tools you're going to need, and basic instructions. And I always say it is worth taking the time to read the information for these kits, because it does tell you what the base paint color is, should the paint callouts not be listed on the parts, which in this case it will be probably olive drab, US olive drab. So if they don't call out a paint color, that's the color you need to paint. But anyway, let's have a look here. So part one, we're looking at the tractor chassis, building up the engine cover, radiator fan, a few gear levers, horns, whatnot, that getting built together, going down onto the chassis. And then we're moving on to the transfer box, possibly air tanks or fuel tanks. So that's obviously moving that's for the drivetrain. Strengthening plates, we've got this is obviously moving down towards the rear. So we've got suspension point, hanging points, and then we've got the rear cross member with lights on, and then that will be possibly a winch point, I'm not sure yet. Yes, there you go. So there we go, we've got a winch going in, that'll probably be the front bumper, and then we've got least rung suspension for the front axle. So moving on, we're looking at the front drive line, air cleaner, steering box. This is the front axle assembly with the movable parts, so be careful there, you don't glue if you want the axles to move. You've got polycaps in here. So this is your rear axle drive assembly. So you've got drive chains to each axle, and this will obviously be part of the rear axle here. All coming together to make a drive unit, which you then assemble onto the chassis. And lots of no glue symbols for obviously the front axle. This is the axle tie bar, ties the two hubs together for positioning your wheels. And obviously you need tweezers to do something here as well. So again, pays to read the instructions before you actually commit to the part itself. Right, hubs, got polycaps on the hubs, rubber tyres, building them up. So probably got front tyre and then doubles for the rear part of the chassis. And then you're moving on, turning over, yep, double wheels, singles on the front axle. And then we're moving on to the interior of the cab. So you've got seats, jerry cans, pipe work probably for air cleaners for the engine, instrument panel, other seats, jerry cans, decals going on, probably first aid kit decal probably. And then we're on to the figures. So we need to assemble and paint the figures before we put the top on the cab. And there's quite a lot of interior detail to go on. So it's probably window glass, framing for the roof of the cab. You've got fire extinguishers, that's water canteens, possibly another fire extinguisher, bits and pieces, greeblies as some people like to call them, just detail parts for the inside of the cab. And I would imagine it'd be pretty sparse. It's obviously a warfighting vehicle and it's an armoured cab, so they won't have just too much hanging off it, because obviously if it's hit with anything, then you don't want spalling or bits hanging off the cab suddenly becoming shrapnel and injuring the crew. So we've got Tommy gun there, jerry can, fire extinguishers, personal water bottles, more jerry cans, just bits and pieces. So this is all the detail stuff you're putting into the rear. That's the rear bulkhead of the cab. And then once all that's assembled in, cab goes down onto the chassis to complete the front. Then we've got options here where we can have the armoured windows open or closed, depending on what you want to do. This symbol here denotes a bit of super glue. So that's obviously for tread plate for steps and whatnot maybe. Some external tools, few bits and pieces, and then we move on to lights and towing A-frames. So this is now part 17, we're now moving on to part 18. We've got the 50 cal ring, slew ring on the top of the cab, more tools. These are the bits we built in the last one, the lights and towing A-frame. And then we're moving on to the stack, exhaust stack. We've got a turret hatch, which will probably be the 50 cal hatch. Yeah, couple of hatch. And then we've got pieces here. So there's oxyacetylene, an A-arm frame, toolbox. So this is all the detail stuff that you're going to start adding onto the back of it, and then you see where it's going on here. Note again, you don't glue a lot of this stuff, so it is movable and positionable, which again, as I said in the intro, the possibilities for detailing and using this kit in dioramas is huge, just only limited by your imagination. So part 21, we're moving on to the winch. Follow through the winch, and it's a massive build in itself. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts solely for the winch. So it's obviously going to be a highly detailed part of the kit, and really will be one of those details that draws your eye into the kit. So it's going to be well worth your time to take your time with this and get it right and get it detailed right. So when people do look at it, they're really drawn to it, and it's a really detailed, interesting part of the kit. Again, more parts that you're not supposed to glue, so you need to pay attention to this, how it goes together, and take your time to get it right, so you don't have any problems with it. Bit of super glue here, so this is the crane arm. So that's part 26. Where are we? Part 27, the crane arm's going on, and you've got an endless chain lifting block here. And then finally you've got the 50 cal, a bit of stowage, spare tyre, some chain and some wing mirrors to go on to the front, and that finishes it. So 28 parts will get you to the point where you've finished the front tractor unit, and then you go on to the trailer. Oh boy. So part 29, these are the metal strengthening parts that we pointed out, that's shown on the front cover. Pay attention that there's obviously sprue gates here to remove that have been left on as a part of the moulding process. Lots of small parts. It's worth taking your time to familiarise yourself with these, and obviously a lot of test fitting before you commit to glue, because these will be the hinge points for the rear fold down legs, or ramps should I say. Obviously screws joining this together. Again, you need to get the right screwdriver. It's probably included in the kit, but also is not over tighten these screws, because if you over tighten them, you stand the risk of stripping them, but also you might warp the parts or pull the parts out of shape, which will make further construction a bit more difficult. Move over to part 31, you can see you're putting on the outside of all the storage chests here, so if you've nipped it too close together, these parts might not fit, and you're going to end up having a lot of problems. So it's worth taking your time with the previous step, getting that right, and then test fitting here before you finish the previous step to make sure that these parts fit as a result of you screwing the top and the bottom deck of the trailer together. Moving on, you've got underneath, these are the landing legs for the trailer unit. And then we've got the trailer axle and wheels. So you're making 2 pairs of them, and you're making 8 pairs of wheels. There's a lot of wheels on this. And there's your axles you've made up. Again, you need to pay attention. You might not glue some of this stuff if it's mobile axles, so you can position them over rough terrain. Rear ramps, loading ramps. Again, super glue, don't glue. So really take your time to read this instruction. It is going to be a complicated build, not for the beginner, not for a young child. Somebody who's built quite a few armour kits and has worked their way up to this, I would certainly recommend. But all the information you need to construct this is obviously in the instructions. There's one thing Tamiya is certainly renowned for, is really comprehensive, detailed instructions. Fair leads for running winch cable through, wheel guard assemblies, M15 semi-trailer. So this is wheel arrangements, is it? Usually here. Okay, so there's obviously, yes, there is some differences here. So it'd be a case of reading and finding out what this is about.
Okay, so tread can be adjusted according to situation. So this is obviously adjusting the width of the wheels on the bogie. So again, depending on what load you've got on here may depend on where you have these positioned. So worth taking note of that and checking from the load you're putting on the trailer to make sure that the wheel spacing will fit the tracks driving in between each wheel. Strengthening plates on the top of the trailer. Wheel guards. Again, this shows you how they can all be fitted. Got some chains holding up the rear ramps. And then you're looking at air lines here and obviously the fifth wheel coupling. Moving on. So we're now in part 40 of this build. Oh no, actually that's the end of the building. So part 39 is the final part construction, and then you're moving on to the possibilities you can for rigging up the winch, for towing on a load. So this is really good information if you want to do a diorama where you're lifting something on, of how to actually set up the winches with blocks, tackles and whatnot, and how they would have done it. And the different loads, you've got two M3s here, or M8 Stewarts and an M5A1 Stewart. So, you know, that's two different loads you can get there. And then we move on to the decals. So obviously it's base olive drab, US Army olive drab, which they are calling out TS5 or XF62 is the paint colour, and it's all over. But that's fine because olive drab's a cracking colour. You can do an awful lot of tonal variation. It was a paint in the war that would have weathered, it would have bleached with the sun. So you can do colour modulation, you can do oil dot fade in, you can do an awful lot of streaking, you can do mud, you can do dust, you name it. The options are endless with this kit. Note here that some of this white here is white paint or white decals. You could certainly mask it and paint it. You know, white bumper here, you've got a white stripe. I'd imagine that's going up over the cab. If we look on the other page, that doesn't tell you, but I'm sure it is a white stripe that goes up over the cab. And then you get, on the end of it, you get your parts diagram. So it's well worth, I certainly did because it's a second-hand kit. I went through all the parts trees and I checked to see that we had all the parts there. Right, goodness me, what an instruction book. Let's have a look at the parts. Well, they come beautifully packed in the kit. You've got the cab, you've got the trailer unit, a box underneath will probably contain all the wheels and whatnot, and then a shed load of sprues. So let's look at the interesting stuff first. Here's the cab. Again, packed in Tamiya as usual, bags with staples. Let's pull it out. And what have we got here? Well, we have got Tamiya's usual, absolutely fantastic moulding. You've got hinges, you've got little light details, all the recesses for adding more parts on. It's crisply moulded, the detail is very sharp. You've also got pieces here that need to be removed. And then you've got a mould mark in there. So we have got kit number 35230, and then it is copyright 1998 Tamiya. So you are looking at a 22-year-old piece of moulding here. That's beautiful. And if we look very closely, you'd struggle to see an injector pin mark in here, which is fantastic. Not that you're going to see it anyway, because when you look through the windows, you're not going to see much, but it's nice to see that Tamiya can produce a very complicated, it must be slide molded. If you look at the shape here, that's not going to lift off a mold like that, so it must be a slide molded piece, but it's fantastic. So there's the cab. Let's move on, and we've got the second, which is the biggest parts here. Should have really popped these staples beforehand, but never mind. Let's get them open. There. And this is the trailer, two trailer parts. So you've got the upper and the lower trailer decks. And yeah, this is where your metal strengthening parts go in. There is actually plastic ribbon in there that strengthens as well. They fit together beautifully. And that's even with all these sprue pieces you have to cut off. So I can see that when you screw in the screw holes, they're all countersunk screw holes. I can see you're not going to have to screw them uber tight. You just need to nip them up that it's joined the parts together. You could probably even go so far as gluing this and not putting the screws in, but obviously if Tamiya's saying put the screws in, you needn't put the screws in. just to give it that extra strength and rigidity, especially if you're going to have a tank on here that you may want to use through tracks, metal tracks for. It's going to be a lot of weight, so get the strengthening parts in here, get the screws in here, and you're not going to have any problems. Right, then we have this box inside here, so let's have a look inside here and see what we have. And we have wheels, or should I say tyres, more to the point. Now they're all the same size and they are beautifully moulded, lovely, realistic looking rubber tyres. Fantastic tread on them. It's actually difficult to get the black to show up, but they've got a cracking tread, very minimal seam down the middle, a swipe with a sanding stick, or if you can fit them on the chuck of a drill, spin the drill against the sanding stick, you're going to remove that and give it a nice sort of worn look. Perfect. You've got, I'm not going to take any of these out, but you've got all the metal parts here. You've got the string for the winch cables. You might want to think about replacing that for copper wire, depending on how fuzzy it is and how realistic it looks when you paint it with, you know, that black iron or something like that. Or you might just use it. I'll probably end up using it because Tamiya string is not too bad, and there is a few things you can do to make it look a little bit better. Axles, screws, the whole lot's in there. What have we got here? So we've got the photo etch, which looks lovely, I have to say. It's really nice, crisp photo etch. Beautiful detail. I don't know if I can get that to focus. Yeah. Cracking bit of photo etch. We have got some reflective lenses for lights, which is really nice, which means we're not going to have to worry about painting silver in there before we put the lens cover on. And then we've got the 50 caliber, which I'm not going to get out of the bag, but it looks beautiful, and it's Tamiya molding, so it is what it is. And then the clear parts, which are clear. You can see every bit of detail through my hand. They're flat, they're clear, they're crisp, they're sharp, and then the light lenses as well. You can see all the detail. So they're nicely packaged in this box here, which is going to keep them safe from being rumbled around in the kit and squashed and whatnot. So hats off to Tamiya. Right, the decals are here as well in the bottom of the box, so we'll have a quick look at them before I start diving and get them out. So there they are. Now they are a little bit yellowed. So this is a 22-year-old kit, so there's probably no wonder they're a bit yellowed. However, once they're against the olive drab and I've taken the time to weather it and muck it up, the chances of them being too bad, it's not going to be too much of a problem, I don't think. They don't look too bad. They're nicely sort of satin finish. The carrier film isn't huge, although there is a little bit of carrier film. Yeah, they look to be reasonably well in register. Yeah, I'm not sure about it. I might see about getting either a replacement set of decals or an aftermarket set, just with this yellow, and because the carrier film you can see is also yellowed. So something that if you're spending a lot of money on this kit, it might be worth spending a £5 and getting a new set of decals for it, but we'll see how they turn out. Right, let's have a look. So what have we got here? This is a double sprue. This is the axle assembly for the truck. So you've got the wheel rims and you've got some crew figures here. And it is Tamiya's usual high quality, beautiful detail. If you rub your finger over the wheel nuts or lug nuts, if you're in America, you can feel how sharp and crisp they are. You've got fantastic detail on the US soldier with his jacket, trousers, boots. A little bit of burring down the seam line, but nothing that a swipe of the craft knife won't get rid of. You've got a couple of different poses for the arms, which is really good. And you've got some faces here. Now the detail is quite small, but it's you'll be able to get it painted. It'll take a bit of a wash and, you know, eyes and whatnot, and it'll come to life. And hub detail, axle detail, just Tamiya quality. It's brilliant. Right, next up we have, these look like cab parts. Oh, Tamiya and Staples, don't you just love it? So, yep, this is cab parts. So you've got chain drives here. This will be winch parts actually, sorry. So you've got chain drives for the winch. You've got the winch bed here. Your parts of the motor, operating levers, all beautifully moulded. Not too many ejector pin marks on it. A few shallow ones, but the chances are they're on the reverse, so you just need to make sure they don't impinge for stuff coming together. You're not going to see them. Yeah, cracking. Look at that. Beautiful detail there on the end of the motor, or the gearbox, drive gearbox. Fantastic. Right, next sprue. And note these aren't stapled, they are heat sealed. So, yep, to Tamiya. No staples to worry about. I'm just going to grab a pair of scissors. And we'll cut this one open. So these are cab parts. You've got the stowage for the roof. You've got the 50 cal ring here. We've got some wheel detail, probably for a winch. Got some light detail. General odds and sods, as you would say. All the detail very crisp, very clean, minimal burring. Minimal ejector pins as well. There are ejector pins here, but nothing that just a swipe with a sanding stick's going to take off straight away. So, yeah, no problems there. Okay, moving on, we have got the next one, which is back to, oh dear, staple bags. Never mind. Just when we thought Tamiya had moved away from them. So this is cab parts. We looked at this first. So this is the chassis of the tractor unit. We've got drivetrain parts here. Beautiful detail on that. I don't know if you can see that there. Look at the detail there. The checker plate, the access hatches. Absolutely fantastic detail. Some really fantastic sort of bellows type detail there. If we can get that to focus. Yep. Fan, engine cover, checker plate on the engine cover, instrument panel, possibly indicator stalks there. That's going to take either a decal or a bit of a wash. We've got some hollowed out air horns there. Fantastic. Side of the engine compartment, steering wheel, levers. Yep, excellent. Minimal burring, very clean. It's going to be easy to put together. This is we'll get this sprue actually next, because this is part of the tractor unit. So this is for the rear deck detail. You've got the oxyacetylene cylinders, so obviously they're in two parts, so you're going to have to join them and remove the seam. But if you take your time, it's not a difficult job and it'll be fine. We've got drums for the winches and drum ends for the winches. We've got the fifth wheel with cast detail onto it. If you read that, look at that. There you go, 8513. It's cast into there. Beautiful detail. Tamiya at its best. There's the rear cross member for the chassis cab unit with all the lights moulded into it. Fantastic detail, minimal burring. If we turn it over, yeah, there's ejector pins, but you're not going to see that. Most of these pins, and the ones you are possibly going to see, are going to be, they're so shallow. A quick swipe with the sanding stick, they're going to be gone. Right. Next sprue. So this is moving on to the trailer parts now. So if we remember this is all the side lockers that go down the trailer, and these are the steps that go up the gooseneck of the trailer, and then we've got the wheel guards here and the rear ramps. Beautiful detail. I don't know if you can see in there, you've got the latch detail for the recessed latch detail for the tool lockers, whatever it is, down the side of the trailer. Again, there are ejector pin marks. You're not going to see any of these because all these parts are going to be hidden, so it's not a problem. Beautiful, crisp detail, even down to the side lights, the running lights there. Yeah, Tamiya at its best, really is fantastic stuff. Right, we have a double sprue here, and looking at it, we're looking at the parts for the rear axle drive on the tractor unit. So I'm just going to take one out because they're identicals. This is where staples come to be a problem because they hook up. Right, rear chain drives for the axles. Oh, my mercy me. Look at the detail on that. That is fantastic detail. Again, I can't stop saying it enough. Tamiya really do knock it out of the park. When they decide to tool something, you know it's going to be tooled right. There is ejector pins. The chances are you're not going to see any of these. They're going to be well hidden, which is one of the things Tamiya does try and do, is try and hide its ejector pin marks where it can. You've even got wood grain effect here. I don't know if I can get the reflection to see that. Can we? Yeah, there you go. You can see there's wood grain. So if we put a very fine coat of paint on that, and maybe a sort of a deck tan or that sort of colour, ochre colour, and then a burnt umber wash. It'll pick out the recess and it'll pick out all the wood grain, and you're going to absolutely make that part pop. Fantastic, even down to all these recessed bolt marks. Just Tamiya. I mean, it is just Tamiya. I am a fanboy, I have to admit that. I'm very biased, but when it comes to Tamiya, they do tend to get it right every time. And let's keep in mind this is a 22-year-old kit. So this is the rear cab bulkhead, and these are all the armour window covers here. And this will be where we need to be careful, because if these things are folded up or down, depending on how you are, then some of this reverse detail may be visible, and there are ejector pin marks on this. They're not very prominent, so they will clean up okay, but you need to take your time to clean them up. Other than that, very sharply moulded, beautiful crisp detail, even down to the hinges. It's just Tamiya, simply Tamiya at its best. And then the last sprue here, which is a folded sprue by the looks of it. I can get it out of the bag. Right, so we've lost the part of rear axle, so we need to be careful, these parts might become detached. So this is part of the rear axle assembly for the chassis cab and the front axle as well. So this is the front axle springs, the steering mechanism, beautifully cast. And there is actually, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but you can see there's a cast texture on the axles. It's just fantastic. I mean, you're probably not going to see these because they're under the truck. However, if you did take the time to look, it's there. And if you put a bit of a wash over it, the detail's going to pop. You know, a bit of dry brush, bit of a wash, and you're going to be laughing. Again, one or two ejector pin marks, you're probably not going to see them. And if you are, they're so shallow, they'll either sand out or a little bit of filler and they'll fill. It's not going to be a problem. Obviously, there is the inserts for the leaf springs here and here. So you need to take your time and not over glue these. Otherwise, if you get too much gluing out, you could destroy the detail on the reverse side. However, it is the reverse side, so the chance of you actually seeing it's pretty slim. But that's something to bear in mind when you're doing it. And then this here, we've got the exhaust. We've got some more fantastic checker plate detail here. We've got a tool locker here. I think that's probably part of the air dryer, if I remember rightly. And this is the parts of the rear chassis cab axle assembly, and strengthening plates, and the front bumper. Again, beautiful detail. You can feel it under your fingers. The bolt heads are very sharp, crisp, and they're all going to take a dry brush and a wash beautifully, and they're going to pop. So there we go. That is all the parts. Let's get back on me and we'll sum it up and give you my thoughts on the kit.
So there we are. There is a tour of the sprues, and geez, what a lot of sprues there is, of Tamiya's beautiful 135th Dragon Wagin US 40-ton tank transporter. So I think I did probably go on for quite a bit there, talking about my thoughts on different parts of the build. Overall, it looks like a fantastic build. Loads of detail. The parts look very crisply moulded. We all know that Tamiya kits, if you take your time and follow the instructions, just fall together. They're often called shake and bake kits. I don't know if this one would be a shake and bake kit because there's so many different intricate parts, and how I would probably approach this build is look at it in subsections. So, you know, focus on a subsection at a time. So you've got the chassis cab, you've got the interior, you've got the rear axle, front axle assembly, the winch assembly, the crane and all that, and then you've got the trailer again, you've got the trailer deck, you've got the axles assembly. There's so many different parts you'll be able to do in a subframe construction and then paint it and then bring it all together, and you will end up with a fantastic kit. And we've not even thought about the possibilities of what you can put on the actual trailer deck as a load. So you've got Shermans, you've got Panthers if you must, you've got Stewarts, there's all the derivatives of the Sherman vehicles, and that's not even looking at any of the British vehicles or Allied vehicles that may have been used and probably were used, because I do believe the British Army used these during the war as well. So it's a limitless kit, only limited by your imagination, and I'm sure there's probably some really interesting photographs out there that you'd be able to base a build of this kit on and make a diorama of. It certainly is going to be a really impressive model, and it's going to be a centerpiece of your collection if you're going to go for it. It's still available new from Tamiya. The retail price, I think, in the UK at the moment is around about £120. You can sometimes pick them up cheaper on eBay, and if you're lucky, like I was, you can pick it up very, very cheap on eBay, but that doesn't happen very often. It's certainly a kit that's worth, if you're into World War II transport vehicles, it's worth investing in, because it's going to be such a long, involved build. You're going to get hours of fun out of it, and you're going to end up with a really, really impressive display piece that any of your friends or club mates are going to really awe over. So I have to say it's going to be recommended. I am biased, I'm a Tamiya fanboy, and I've also wanted this kit since I first saw it back in 1998, so we're looking at a 22-year-old kit. It's something that I am planning to build on the channel, but it's not going to happen in a hurry. I'm looking possibly early next year, when I think of all the other builds I've got going on at the moment and what I would like to do at the end of the year. This is going to take its time, and I'd fancy probably saving up a few pennies and buying a few extras for this to enhance the detail, plus the fact I've got to get something to go on the back of it. So all that considered, I have to say it's a recommended. I have to say it looks like it's going to be a fantastic model and well worth a punt if you're into this sort of stuff. So there we go. This is my inbox review sprue tour of Tamiya's 1/35 scale 40-ton tank transporter Dragon Wagin. Thanks for watching. If you've stuck it through to the end, I do appreciate that. If you think about liking and subscribing, I'd appreciate that as well. If not, it's not a problem. If you've got any questions or comments, just drop them down below. I do take the time to read and answer all questions that everyone put down. So, you know, if you want to ask me a question, pop it down below and I will get back to you. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, happy modelling, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.